Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfalla.
And Ray Alfalla is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Freeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Welcome everyone to Season 3 of the Ray Esports Racing League presented by RaceVoice and Alliance Autosport on Apex Racing TV. It's a new season and with it brings change, new classes, out of the Pro Formula Mazdas, it is the Club Racing Stalwart Formula V, and new voices as well. And I'd like to introduce you to my longtime announcing partner outside of the virtual world, Brian Donati, who'll be joining us all season long, but with change comes some stability as well. Not only will we be returning some of the most iconic North American racetracks this season with 2 races each Tuesday night, but we'll once again have Dennis Branch in the virtual production truck bringing you the great action that Apex Racing TV is known for. It was just 2 months ago that we wrapped up Season 2 at tonight's venue, the first permanent home of the United States Formula One Grand Prix, a circuit known as much for its speed as for its blue Armco that still rings the track. To kick off Season 3, we return to the mecca of North American road racing and its 3.4 miles of power and fury, Watkins Glen International. So Brian, first off, welcome to the Ray Esports Racing League.
I'll tell you what, Greg, it's great to be here, and it's great to sit here and watch and learn a little bit even more as we get started with the Season 3, and starting here at the iconic of Watkins Glen. Doesn't get any better than that.
No, it certainly doesn't. And so let's run things down. Like I said, definitely some changes this year. We're going to have our Spec Racer Fords, as we have had all 3 seasons long, and they are going to be kicking off this season here for us at the Glen. We are also this year going to have our Mazda Mx-5s, as we always do, but they've got the week off. We're going to see them next week when we go to our next venue, and we'll talk about the schedule in just a little while. But we now have the new addition to the iRacing platform, and that is Formula V. It is a classic class that has been part of club racing here in the United States for, I believe, more than 40 years at this point. And we'll see some great racing from them. They're going to be up after our Spec Racer Ford race. But let's give everybody a little rundown here of the format. We have 15 minutes of open qualifying. All of our drivers out on track at once, trying to set a fast lap. And as you can see, by looking at the timing pylon in the upper left-hand side of your screen, we are already over halfway through the Spec Racer Ford's qualifying session. This session will set the grid for their race. It is going to be a 20-minute sprint to the checker, and it should make for some very exciting racing. And you know, Brian, we've got a huge field here already. We've got 21 cars that have set laps already. Ooh, as the 223 of Justin Huffman goes into the wall there. We've got 21 drivers that have already set lap times here. We have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about another 6 drivers that have not yet set lap times. So we'll be tracking that, but it should be a great race. We've got some returning drivers, drivers that have done very well. For example, sitting at the top of the timing pylon right now from the All Sports Racing team, we've got Morgan Burkhard in the number 40 machine. He's set a fast time so far of a 2:04.92. We've got Paul Slavonic, an SCCA autocrosser who is here with us tonight. And Paul was, I think, was part of the initial seasons of the SCCA eSports Super Tour, pretty much the predecessor to the Ray Esports League. So great to have Paul along with us here. We've got Jamison Huffman, who had a number of podium finishes last year in the number 89 machine. Caleb Patry, who has been racing with a local Rika's esports program. He is joining us here, and he's been on a number of races with the Ray Esports League as well. We've got some other stalwarts. Zach Burke is here. Murphy Nichols is here. We saw Bryce Evans here. We also, of course, have Stevie Ray, the Ray in Ray Esports, and it's good to have him there. Stevie in the number 11 Alliance Autosport machine, and we're going to talk about Alliance Autosport, our new sponsor that we brought on here for this season. We'll talk about them in just a little while, but Brian, I think, you know, the big thing here is our drivers go out and they try to set fast times here, and there's about 5 minutes left to go in this session, is that Watkins Glen, as we said, it's a very, very fast track. Almost every turn here is built to allow you to increase your speed the way turns are cambered, but it also makes things very difficult to pass here. And so, you know, I think these drivers with this very large field are going to have to try to get as far up in the order as they can to start this race.
You know, no, absolutely, Greg. There are some pretty tight places on this racetrack, and passing is going to be a premium. You're going to have to get it done quick, and you're going to have to get it done early, especially when you come out of that turn 4 and you get on that backstretch. Before you get into the chicane there, you've got to get that pass done. After that, it becomes a little tight until you get to the end of the toe and up through the boot to the heel. At that point, it gets even tighter coming out of turn 9.
Yeah, Brian. So obviously here, these drivers, they're going to have to be on their toes, and there's not a lot of time here with just a 20-minute race to be able to pick out the weaknesses of the drivers ahead of you. As you said, you got to pick your spots, you got to pick them early and make those passes stick, because you may not get a lot of opportunities. Of course, as you said, one of the biggest one is we watch what is known as the inner loop or the bus stop or the chicane. Any one number of names going into that bus stop is probably one of the prime passing opportunities. As a matter of fact, I look back to season 2 where we had a 3-wide pass for the finish, or on the very last lap, with one driver in the grass getting set up for that turn. And it's, you know, it's something that you have to commit, and yet you have to show the nose, otherwise it can get very ugly going through that turn complex. But the key here, as almost you'll find for almost every lap, is to be able to keep up your momentum, be able to stay in the draft with your competitors, so that you are not, you know, in no man's land trying to get back up to another pack.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Greg. You see this in basically all forms of racing, but especially in the Spec Racer Fords, it is all about momentum. It's all about draft. 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars are much faster than one. It's almost like driving with a parachute on the back of your car. if you get hung out to dry there, especially coming down that backstretch, getting into that heavy braking zone, kind of in the 300, 200-foot mark of that bus stop to get through that outer loop.
There we go, and we see two drivers that are in the draft together, the two teammates from the All Sports Racing team, Morgan Burkhard, who is your provisional pole sitter at the moment, and Jamison Huffman in the number 89 car, sitting very close behind. Currently your third fastest driver on track here in qualifying, as we have just about 2 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. You can see where the drivers stand there on the timing pylon up in the top left-hand corner. Oh, and Caleb Patry crosses the stripe in the number 198 machine. He now moves up to second to provisionally to the outside pole, moving Slavonic now back into the second row with Jamison Huffman. Giancarlo Schooler currently sitting in the pit lane along with Zach Burke, currently running 5th and 6th, with Beans Forster, Ben Forster, and Richard Spicer running 7th and 8th. And Brian, you were telling me that you spent a little bit of time a few weeks ago with Richard Spicer. He might be the dark horse in that number 26 machine. He has a lot of spec racer Ford of experience in real life.
Absolutely. Met Richard in June at Summit Point with the Maloneys, Ryan Maloney, who drives a Spec Miata, and his father. Richard's a national champion, so he knows his way, obviously not only around this racetrack, but obviously with the Spec Racer Ford. So you're right, he could be the dark horse here through the end of this 20-minute race.
Yeah, and I believe we had Richard sit in for 1 or 2 rounds last season where he did incredibly well. So definitely we want to watch out for Richard Spicer in the number 26 machine, as we have just about a minute left to go here in qualifying, Brian. And as we do, looks like some of our top 5 have now decided to pull, actually top 6 have decided to bring their cars into the pit lane and get set up for the race. But we do still have Caleb Patry and Paul Slavonic out on track, both of those drivers looking to improve their standing, as Morgan Burkhard is currently your provisional pole sitter with only 25 seconds left on the clock. And of course, when that clock hits 15 minutes, all flying laps will indeed count. So if you're on a lap, on a fast lap, when that checkered flag comes out, you'll be able to continue that. As we jump over now and take a look at Steve Ray, a little bit further down, I think, than he expected. Steve Ray currently running 14th in that number 11 car, and he had a couple of podium finishes last season. Looks like they crossed the stripe right after the checkered flag came out, so I don't think they're going to get another flying lap. And there you go. Looks like both he and the 223 machine call things off. And the 223, I believe, actually is. I believe that driver is the father of Jamison Huffman. That's Justin Huffman. We'll have to see how things play out. A couple of times last year, father and son mixed it up maybe a little bit too much on track, Brian, and it led to tears, if not during the race, maybe a little bit after the race.
I tell you what, I wouldn't want to be sitting in the sim next to him at that point, but absolutely, no. That could be a dangerous situation.
I never got to ask Jamison if they actually have their rigs right next to one another, because I could see them maybe reaching a hand over and slapping the other or something if they get into a wreck there. We're on board right now with Murphy Nichols in the number 5 machine. Murphy had a couple podium finishes last year, but it looks like he has finished his session as well. Let's see if he finished his session. No, I think he's still on his very last lap. He did kind of blink out there. Murphy Nichols from Frederick, Maryland, and as we saw a couple times last year, perhaps not the most stable of internet connections for him. As Bean Forster crosses the stripe, and he will start 7th today. And we have just a couple more drivers out on course.
Greg, I think the interesting part is if you look in the 3rd position there with Paul Slavonic and Jamison Huffman, identical times with a 2:05.62. So that's pretty interesting there, with only 0.3 out of that second. So that top 5, top 6 spots are really going to be interesting in this race. Look for them to probably hook up and break away.
Yeah, the difference, and I don't have it on my system here going back into the thousands, but the difference between Slavonic and Huffman, as you can see, they are 3/1000ths of a second. All right, so our drivers, they're going to be gridding up here in just a moment. And as they do, Brian, I mentioned it earlier, we have a new sponsor here on the Ray Esports Racing League, and that is Alliance Autosport. They're based out of Columbus, Ohio, and they found success at both the club and professional levels, garnering multiple championships, including 7 SCCA National Championships, 3 SCCA Pro Racing Championships, and also a USF 2000 National Class Championship. Alliance Autosport's team members are dedicated, hardworking, and know, obviously, with that pedigree, what it takes to win. Not only are they SCCA Enterprises Great Lakes Division customer service representative for Spec Racer Ford 3, as well as Formula Enterprises 2, but the team services include arrive and drive packages for Spec Racer Ford Gen 3, Formula Enterprises 2, and also for Trans Am 2, spanning customer car prep, trackside support, transportation, storage, part sales, data analysis, hospitality, as well as driver coaching and development. You can join Alliance Autosport on the winning track, and you can check them out at allianceautosport.com. All right, so Brian, first time out, why don't you go and run down the starting grid for us?
All right, let me go ahead and switch my screen. Looks like
all you got to do is just start off on row 1 and work your way down.
All right, well, I will do that. Starting on the pole, the 40 of Morgan Burkhard. Starting second, the 198 of Caleb Patry. Starting third, the 528 of Paul Slavonic. Starting fourth, the number 89 of Jamison Huffman. Starting fifth, the 111 of Giancarlo Schooler. Starting sixth, the 13 of Zach Burke. Starting seventh, the 231 of Benjamin Forrester. Starting eighth, the 26 of Richard Spicer. Starting ninth, the 09 of Jordy Fike. Starting 10th, the 223 of Justin Huffman. 11th, the number 5 of Murphy Nichols. Starting 12th, the number 2 of Greg Mack. Starting 13th, the 221 of Charles Vaccaro. Starting 14th, the number 11 of Stevie Ray. Starting 15th, the 311 of Bryce Evans. Starting 16th, the 71 of Andrew Benga. Starting 17th, the number 14 of Reid Sennebrook. Starting 18th, the number 4 of Wiley Cox. Starting 19th, the number 15 of Kylie Robinson. Starting 20th, the number 999 of Mark Grehan. Starting 21st, the number 20 of Mike Taylor. Starting 22nd, the number 25 of Andre Jameson. Starting 23rd, the number 78 of John A. Casey. Starting 24th, the number 66 of Derek Marcos. Starting 25th, the 700 of Joaquin Iffinger. Starting 26th, the number 73 of Wayne Buttermore. And starting 27th, the 45 of Brennan Horn. That's your starting field.
Yeah, there you go. That is the field as the pace car now has the field. They're going to take a lap around this 2.4-mile course, and then we will get underway for our first race of Season 3 here on the Ray Esports Racing League. And so, Brian, a couple surprises here in looking at the grid, and we'll have to see if he goes out, because I don't see him on track. Brennan Horn in the number 45 machine. He was out for practice. I don't believe he set a time out of the outer loop, making their way down through the chute into the boot. A whole bunch of stuff that rhymes pretty closely here, but we're getting a great view of this beautiful Watkins Glen International Race Course. And Brian, I'll tell you, the weather and the could not be better for a race like this. We're looking at 76-degree track temperatures. We are looking. Well, actually, the track temperature's gone up quite a bit. 116 now, so it's gotten a little bit warmer. 76 degrees, ambient air. And very little wind, only 4-mile-per-hour wind there. So it should be great weather for racing. Now, these race cars, let's talk a little bit about them. As you'll notice here, looks like the number 198 machine, Caleb Patry, having some internet connectivity issues. These cars, again, all spec cars, They are the newer Spec Racer Ford Gen 3 spec. iRacing upgraded the platform earlier this spring. They are 1.6-liter motors. They have a 6-speed sequential transmission, and they are also running on a new tire model compared to what they had for a number of years. They may still say Goodyear on the side, but I guarantee you they're not modeled after the Goodyear tires from 2001, like the older versions of the Spec Racer Ford in iRacing, as the pace car now brings the field out of turn 10, heading towards turn 11, and as they make their way now onto the front straight here at Watkins Glen International, the pace car ducks into the pit lane, and Morgan Burkhard, he has the field. You'll see there Caleb Patry again blinking in and out as we get ready for a green flag, and there it is. The starter gives the signal, and Caleb Patry tries to move over just a little bit to hold off Jamison Huffman. Can't do it. Morgan Burkhard, he's going to lead the field down into turn 1. He's got Slavonic right behind him, side by side with Caleb Patry. Patry now drops, looks like he drops into third. A little bit further back, we've got Jamison Huffman and Giancarlo Schooler running in 4th and 5th. Zach Burke, Richard Spicer side by side as they make their way up through the S's, and you can see there Andrew Bennett trying to split 2 cars. Bennett trying to get through Bryce Evans and Andre Jamison as our leaders come down the back straight over towards the bus stop for the very first time, and as they duck on in, Morgan Burkhard, he holds on to the lead, but there you go, the 528 machine. Oh, and we had somebody go off. I believe that was Caleb Patry, who just went off in the 198 machine, dropping Patry now all the way back to 7th position. It is Morgan Burkhard with Paul Slavonic in the 528 machine, with Huffman and Zach Burke making up a couple positions there. Oh, and going around Murphy Nichols, spinning around, going into turn number 6, heading down into the boot. He's going to have to recover, but he drops now all the way back to 25th, Brian.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we got a little bit of contact there going into that turn there, Greg, but he was able to keep it going there. But you're right, it is Morgan Burkhard. Now Paul Slavonic is going to be in 2nd. Move Zach Burke up 3 positions up to that third spot. Jamison Huffman now in 4th. Look for those guys to start to pull away, as now you got Paltry side by side with, it looks like, Benjamin Foster there. So those two are going to hold that line up as our front 4 or 5 cars start to pull away, as they start to come down the hill and come around that up through turn 9 and then back over to turn 10, which will be back towards the start-finish line, Greg.
Yeah, so Patry tried to make up some ground after that spin through the bus stop there. He gets back ahead of Ben Forster and Richard Spicer. Move Patry now back up to 5th. He had fallen down as far as 7th. As we complete lap number 1, Morgan Burkhard, he is your leader. Slavonic running 2nd. Jamison Huffman now, he gets around Zach Burke, but we look a little bit further back, and there we go, side by side again. It is Andrew Bennett. It's the 311 of Bryce Evans, and then the 221 of Charles Vaccaro. And Brian, those 3 drivers, I think, have been side by side 3 wide pretty much for the entirety of our first lap, as it looks like Bennett now gets a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, it looks like they had to give a little bit of a break there just to kind of get through there, but now throw Paul Slavonic in front of Morgan Burkhard, and then you've got his teammate Jamison Huffman right behind them as they start to head into the bus stop there. Coming through into that braking zone, it looks like it's going to be Slavonic over Burkhard and Huffman. Look for Burkhard and Huffman to share a little bit of space there, stay nose to tail, and try to be able to go right by Slavonic here within the next couple of laps. A little bit further back, Richard Spicer, Caleb Paltry, they're going to go side by side. Now it looks like Paltry's going to go just a little bit further. Richard Spicer's now it's going to drop back. He's going to hold up the Jordy Fike and the Benjamin Foster machine as they come down through the chute and down into the toe of the boot.
Yeah, so there you go, as we see Richard Spicer now getting around the 231 of Forster as well as the 09 of Fike. So Spicer trying to make his way up and see if he can get back up to the back of Caleb Patry, who is continuing his move back towards the front of the field. Patry now up in 4th, having dropped back to 7th. As we drop a little bit further back in the field here, we're on board with Greg Mack in the number 2 machine, and you see he's got his teammate there in the number 13, Zach Burke, just a little bit further ahead. Burke, who had been up in the top 3 for a while, he now drops back and is running in 7th. as our leaders, Slavonic, Burkhard, and Huffman, make their way through turns 10 and heading into turn 11 to complete lap number 2. But a lot of good side-by-side racing here, and still a lot of tight packs here. Oh, as we take a look now at the 700 machine of Joaquin Effinger, it looks like he's got a lot of front end damage there. Maybe we can go back and see exactly what happened.
Yeah, so wait to see as he looks like he's coming out of turn 9 there, coming up. Looks like he gets really, really wide, loses control of the car, and then nose into right there in between turns 9 and turn 10. That's a lot of front end damage there, Greg.
Yeah.
He's going to have to go get that fixed.
Yeah, and turn 9 there, and there we go. We see the 700 coming down the pit lane. Turn 9, pretty much the only turn on this course that is off camber, and it's also a decreasing radius, and not difficult if you get on the throttle a little early to have the rear end of that car come around. Speaking of which, going into the bus stop there, heck of a drift angle. We had Jamison Huffman, who for the moment had moved up to the front of the lead, or the front of the pack, and he had a nice little drift through the bus stop as we see Steve Ray in the number 11 machine. He drops off course on the exit of the bus stop, the inner loop, and he's going to fall all the way back through the field now. He is sitting in 17th, having started 14th, losing a couple positions. But let's take a look here as we see the battle for 7th position right now. We've got Jordy Fike in the the battle for 6th. We've got Jordy Fike with Ben Forster in the 231 machine right ahead of him. Richard Spicer in that blue 26 had cleared those two drivers, and he is starting to make his way up, and we'll see if Forster and Fike can make their way back up, but sitting right back behind them, we've got the 13 of Zach Burke trying to find his way back up through the field, as well as Greg Mack, as we continue with this battle between the 09 and the 231.
Yeah, I tell you what, Greg Mack dropped back just a little bit. He had moved up right on the back bumper of Zach Burke and Jordy Fike. As looks like we got the 78 now. Looks like that's spun around there through turn 5 through the outer loop as they come through. That's John Casey, so he's going to drop back just a little bit further, as now he's going to be in the battle with Andre Jamison and Derek Marcos as they come out. But last lap by, you had Greg Mack really trying to work his way up through Zach Burke and Jordy Fike, as I was talking about there, and Benjamin Foster, but then he had to drop back because he had to get hard on the brakes as they were too wide going through there early on. As they start to come back through too wide now, you've got the 09 there of Jordy Fike, or that may be the 89 there, excuse me.
I was going to say, speaking of too wide, those are our leaders.
Huffman. Yep.
Jamison Huffman, as along with Paul Slavonic in the 528 machine, and then we've got Morgan Burkhard sitting right back behind with the nose tucked right underneath, and I kind of expected it here as Huffman cuts across the nose of Slavonic. Burkhard now comes to the inside, and a lot of times we see here that inside car doesn't necessarily have the position going into the bus stop. And so Huffman, he's going to continue on in the lead here as we drop a little bit further back now as we take a look at the 09 of Fike. We've got Zach Burke and Ben Forster, and side by side Forster and Greg Mack as they come through the outer loops. A great battle there, although Forster has dropped back a couple positions in that number 231 machine. It's still great battle going on for 6th between the 09 of Fike, the 13 of Burke, Forster, and Mack. And take a look at this. A lot of damage now. That is Charles Vaccaro in the 221 machine. He started in 13th. And you know, Brian, for a car that has got a fiberglass body, there's a lot of folded up stuff there.
That doesn't look like fiberglass anymore. That looks like a little bit bent up. But when you talk about when we were back in their overall leaders with Jamison Huffman, Morgan Burkhard, and Paul Slavonic, what that's doing is by them going side by side and racing back and forth, where they are able to gain that advantage a little bit. Now Caleb Patry and Richard Spicer, now it becomes a 5-car battle instead of a 3-car battle. They're starting to bring them back in, which will end up bringing Jordy Fike and Zach Burke along with Benjamin Foster. So it could end up with an 8-car battle here as we're about 8.5 minutes in.
Yeah, you can see now where both Patry and Spicer, they're a couple car lengths back, but typically with these Spec Racer Fords, as long as you're within about a second or so, you will be able to get into the draft. And so I would suspect that we're going to see things turn not from a 3-car race, but a 4-car race, possibly a 5-car race in just a few moments here as our leaders have already made their way through turn 5. Oh, and it looks like Andrew Bennett, more problems for that number 71 machine. It looks like, oh, a little bit further back, another car that has an issue there. Let's go take a look at the replay here, Brian, as we've got the 14, the 71, as well as the number 20 car going in, and we see the 71 lose pace. And do we have somebody hit him? Oh, yes, as Bennett gets on the throttle. And still have another car that looked like that might have been Kyle Robertson that had the issue there getting into the side of Andrew Bennett.
Yeah, it looks like he just got a little bit hot into the corner right there, and the back end just kind of came around. Again, you talked about it earlier on. This track is 116 degrees, and it looks like now we have the 5 car there, Murphy Nichols, into the back of Mike Taylor, coming through the chute there, and really had no place to go.
Yeah, and so it looks like Murphy Nichols has taken to the pits, as has Mike Taylor, as we are now just about halfway through this 20-minute sprint race, and it has been, since the drop of the green flag, a 3-car battle for the lead. We've got the 2 All Sports Racing teammates of Jameson Huffman, our current leader, our pole sitter, Morgan Burkhard, who started on the pole, running in second, and then Paul Slavonic in third. But again, Caleb Patry and Richard Spicer, they're making their way up, but I think another great battle that we continue to have here is that battle for 6th. Zach Burke, Jordy Fike, Ben Forster, and Greg Mack in the number 2 machine. He's fallen a little bit off that battle, about a second and a half back, but great battles nonetheless, both in the top 3 as well as, 5th, 6th, and 7th as well.
Now our leaders start to get single file as they know that you've got Patry and Spicer starting to close in on them. So they've got to start to work 4. They'll be getting into that hard braking zone there. Greg, going into the bus stop, they've got to stay nose to tail in order to start pulling away from our 4th and 5th place cars. As you can see there, as Patry starting to go a little bit further back. So these guys are starting to figure this thing out. With 11.5 minutes into this race, they've got to work together in order to pull away.
That's right. All right, looks like Bryce Evans goes a little wide, has some problems in that very wide off-track area on the outside of turn 1 over at the 90 that was added a number of years ago for NASCAR. And there are a number of places here again where you can kind of open the corner up just a little bit that have been put in primarily for NASCAR. This section of the track here, the boot, not used by NASCAR, so not really affected. Pretty much the same as it's been since 1970. And we take a look here now. Oh, look at this, as Ben Forster has to get on the binders coming through turn 7 over at the toe of the boot. Looked like he was going to go right into the back of Zach Burke there. Looks like Zach Burke, with a little bit of damage at the rear car, might have had somebody do that to him already.
Yeah, Forster looked like he had a heck of a run trying to come up through there. And now looks like we got Patry off track right now going through there as well.
Yeah, that is the second time now for Caleb Patry to go off track. Let's take a look as he was with Richard Spicer going towards the heel of the boot, and they had another driver, the 528 machine, sitting right behind him. Oh, look at there. Yeah, I thought maybe Spicer had gotten into the back of Patry, but I think Patry just maybe had the brake bias a little wrong, and looks like the rear of the car locked up, and he skidded right off at the exit of the of turn 8 there, actually the entrance of turn 8, the heel of the boot, as our leaders now come through the 90 through turn 1 once again to start lap number 7, and it is still Jameson Huffman. And hey, look, I'm still on the nose of these cars. Ain't that great? There we go. As Jameson Huffman and Morgan Burkhard, as well as Paul Slavonic, only a couple of inches separating these 3 cars. And, you know, Brian, I think you got it right. I think they realized that that Spicer and, well, at this point, it's just Spicer because he doesn't have the Patry car there to act as a bridge with him. They were starting to make ground on our leaders, so as soon as they saw that, they kind of decided to just get in line and separate themselves back out again. I wonder now that Richard Spicer doesn't have a drafting partner, whether or not it's going to be battle on again, as we have now just about 6 minutes remaining this 20-minute race.
Yeah, Richard Spicer about 2.5, almost 3 seconds behind them now. He's going to start to fall back even further. Losing Patry right there really was a force for Richard Spicer. He needed him to stay in line there so they could try to catch them. These front three of Jamison Huffman, Morgan Burkhardt, and Paul Slavonic, they're going to start to battle again. So it could be that Richard Spicer's still in the driver's seat right now. So it could be that he's just going to sit there and wait some time to see what those three are going to do.
All right, we jump back now to the battle for 5th. Used to be the battle for 6th. That is now the battle for 5th with Ben Forster in the number 231 machine. Zach Burke, the Canadian, in the number 13 machine. They are still nose to tail as they come through turn 9. But the big difference here is that we've got the 231. If Forster had gotten around Burke. Previous lap, we saw that Burke was the leader in that battle, but it also looks like Jordy Fike in the 09 machine. He's starting to close things down just a little bit. As we jump back to our leaders as they start lap number 8 now, as we have just about 5 minutes remaining. So probably 3 more laps here, Brian, at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I tell you what, Greg, the race that I'm really looking forward to watching, not only in our front 3, but if we drop back just a little bit further when we were talking about Forster and Zach Burke, they're actually have a possibility of catching Richard Spicer. But looking at the lap times, and I've been looking at, the intermittent that they're difference from, and I tell you what, they could end up catching him for that 4th place spot in that. But our leaders now, as they stop here, Jamison Huffman, Morgan Burkhardt, and Paul Slavonic, they're still nose to tail coming out of the bus stop, heading down into the outer loop.
You know, Brian, as we watch now that battle between Forster and Burke, as they came out of turn 3, came out of the uphill S's side by side, I'll tell you, if they continue to battle like that, they are not going to catch Richard Spicer for 4th position, of course. Then again, at this point, I don't think either of these drivers are looking for a spot on the podium a little bit further back, and we see them now coming out of the outer loop and making their way down towards the boot. That is Reid Shannabrook in the number 14 machine. Reid out of, I believe, the San Francisco area, Bay Area of California, and we've seen him run very well in the Mazda Mx-5s. I think this is the first time we've seen him in the Ray Esports League in Spec Racer Ford. He's running a respectable 8th as, looks like the 311 car, Bryce Evans. I think this is the second time we've seen him go off, this time over at the inner loop at the bus stop. He is currently running 14th.
I'll tell you what, Morgan Burkhardt going a little bit wide there, coming out of turn 9 up the little hill into turn 10 there. Going to drop back just a little bit further from Jamison Huffman as they start to head down to the cross the start-finish line. Huffman leading by about 9/10 of a second, but I mean 9/100ths of a second. But I tell you what, now as they say that, they are right back underneath there, looking to get up underneath Jamison Huffman as they cross the start-finish line into turn 1.
Yeah, and so, Brian, I think what we see here, we talked about this during qualifying, that, a lot of the corners here, the way they're cambered, they really promote speed, and you can get through these corners very quickly. But the problem is, and a little bit of a wiggle from Jamison Huffman there, going through the S's, and Burkhardt still holding station, sitting back behind. We'll see if Huffman has to get defensive, or whether or not his teammates going to take advantage. It looks like they are going to stay nose to tail. The thing is that with the exception of this run out of the S's going into the bus stop, the straightaways here at Watkins Glen are rather short for what straightaways there are, and it's very hard to take advantage and draft past another car. The other longest straightaway that you have is down in the boot coming out of the toe, which is that real big dig going uphill and around the corner, and you just can't carry enough speed to draft past somebody going down into the heel of boot, at least not in a Spec Racer Ford, and not very easily. As we take a look now at that battle still going on between Forster and Burke. The battle now for 5th position is Beans Forster and Zach Burke still nose to tail as they come through that toe of the boot that I was just talking about there, and you can see how much speed these cars lose as they head on up that hill and then make their way up the little crest, drop down again, going down into the heel. But you could also see there for a brief moment there, Brian, we saw that deep blue number 26 machine of Spicer, and both Forster and Burke in their battling have fallen off from that 4th place car.
Yeah, Greg, I tell you what, as our time is really starting to wind down here, running up on that 19 minutes, it looks like Huffman and Burkhard, they want to try to get away from Paul Slavonic as much as possible. But as those two start to go through across the start-finish line one more time, now it looks like Slavonic's going to look like he's going to make a move on Morgan Burkhard going past the start-finish line down into turn one. Still side by side as they sit there. The man that's loving this actually right now is Jameson Huffman. But Morgan Burkhard just not going away, taking turn one just a little bit wide. So you're going to drop him back down to third place, move Paul Slavonic up into second. He's got his eyes set on Jameson Huffman now.
There you go, and with the white flag in the air, we're on the very last lap. Father of Jameson Huffman, Justin Huffman, in the 223 car goes off, and now side by side, and we saw this earlier, Brian, where Slavonic had a lot better pace than both Jameson Huffman and Morgan Burkhard up through the S's, at least for the moment. He is our leader, and he manages to hold off the two teammates of the All Sports Racing team as they go through the inner loop, through the bus stop here at the Glen. And on the very last lap, with now just about a half of a lap to go here in our 20-minute sprint, round one of the Ray Esports Racing League, Paul Slavonic in the 528 car. He is your leader. Morgan Burkhard in the number 40 machine, our pole sitter. He is now in second, and Jameson Huffman, who led so much of this race, he is now sitting back in third, and now time is definitely running out. Oh, look at this. Slavonic gets loose going through the toe of the boot. He almost loses the car, but more importantly, he loses the lead. He now drops back to third, and Richard Spicer now with a head of steam. He's looking for that last spot on the podium. We'll see if Slavonic can hold him off, as they are now side by side as they go under braking, going into the heel of the boot. And our new third place runner on the very last lap, Richard Spicer. But as we jump back up to the lead, the two teammates now nose to tail. Morgan Burkhard, your leader. Jameson Huffman running in second. Burkhard loses the rear of the car going through turn 9. That promotes the 89 of Huffman into the lead with just 2 turns left to go here at Watkins Glen. Jameson Huffman, can he hold on for just one more turn as they come onto the front straight? Yes, he does. And taking the win here in round one of the Ray Esports League in Spec Racer Ford, it's Jameson Huffman. Morgan Burkhard is going to finish in second. Crossing the line third, Paul Slavonic gets back around Richard Spicer. Richard Spicer in the 26 machine, he's going to finish fourth. Zach Burke gets around Beans Forster. He is going to finish in fifth. Forster in sixth. Finishing in seventh is Reid Shannabrook, with Greg Mack finishing in eighth. Stevie Ray works his way up to 10th with Wayne Buttermore next around. They haven't come out of turn 11 yet, so I don't want to go and get ahead of myself here. But we'll see here. But great run. And Brian, I mean, could we see more surprises in just a half of a lap, as we saw from Paul Slavonic, from Morgan Burkhard, and we saw from Jameson Huffman?
I'll tell you what, Greg, in the last half of that lap, we saw 3 different leaders within 100 yards of each other to allow Jameson Huffman to get back around both of them in order to pick up this win. What an exciting race. What an exciting opening way to start season 3 here.
All right, and it only took a couple seconds, Brian, but we have waiting in the green room a couple of our podium finishers. Let's first bring in our second place finisher, pole sitter tonight, driver of the number 2 machine, Morgan Burkhard. Brian, he's ready for you.
All right. Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting him to jump right in there. Morgan, congratulations finishing second there. I tell you what, you had one heck of a race there. Talk about that race, not only with your teammate Jameson Huffman, but with Paul Slavonic.
Well, from the get-go, it was just trying to break away from everyone else, trying to get a good gap before we start fighting. And we managed to do that. And then going into the last laps, it was trying to play mind games and get everyone where I wanted them. And it almost worked. So there's that.
How much did your car start to go away there towards the end? I know you were trying to work with Jameson and try to get away from everybody else, especially early on in the race. Talk about how much did your car change during that 20 minutes?
Well, the first 5 minutes were good, but then after that, the car, the front tires just start to go off, and it doesn't want to turn as much, so you have to put a little bit more braking effort to get the nose to bite. But it's difficult to guess it just right to get it to turn.
All right. Well, there you go, look, folks. There is your second place finisher of Morgan Burkhard. Morgan, you got anybody you'd like to thank tonight for in this race here?
Well, I'd like to thank my parents, as always, for letting me do this and help me get through it. And I want to dedicate this one to my mentor, Francois Duret, who sadly passed away about a month ago. He's really helped me and Jameson a lot, and a lot of other young drivers. So this one's dedicated to him.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you very much for that. Again, your second place winner tonight, Morgan Burkhard in the number 40 machine. Greg?
All right, so let's bring in our winner now, driver the number 89 All Sports Racing Machine, Jameson Huffman.
Jameson, congratulations on winning this opening round of season 3 here from Watkins Glen. Talk about that race and talk about that battle between you and Morgan and Paul Slavonic.
That was so much fun, dude. We were just trading positions, and at the start we were kind of just going ham and trading positions. Started to quiet down a little bit because we saw Caleb and Richard working together, like right at that 1 second mark for the draft. So we just tried to stick together. Then last 2 laps, everything just went out the window, and we all pushed for it.
Now talk about the game plan there at the very beginning, because again, you started out in 4th, moved all the way up into 2nd there, and then kind of got nose to tail with Paul and Morgan just to try to pull away and do everything you could. You saw Richard Spicer and them coming to you. Were there any conversations between you guys early on about trying to get away from as many people as you could?
Me and Morgan so in practice, we had a pretty good lead over people. We were both in 204s and comfortably in them, and we were going to try and run away, but proved to not be it. So me and Morgan were just talking to each other in Discord, and we were just kind of sitting with Paul because we realized he already had a game plan too. So.
All right. Well, Jameson, who'd you like to thank tonight?
I'd like to thank my parents for letting me race tonight, my teammates, Murphy, JC, Tyler, Morgan, everyone, for racing and practicing with us. We've been also doing some 24-hour races. We're about to do a 24-hour at Monza this weekend too.
All right. Well, congratulations on this opening win, and what a fantastic race and what a fantastic battle you guys had all for that entire 20 minutes.
All right, there you go. That was Jameson Huff. eSports Racing League. And although we're going to take a break in just a moment, I want to remind everybody, if you like what you see here tonight, and that was some great racing in Spec Racer Ford, go ahead and smash that thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to Apex Racing TV and click on the notification bell so you can find out about all the great broadcasts that Apex Racing TV has, not just here for races in the United States like the eSports League, but all around the world. And you can also find out more about what's coming up on Apex Racing TV by subscribing to our social media channels. That is Twitter, that is Instagram, that is Facebook. All you got to do is search for Apex Racing TV, all one word, and that way you can find out more about everything we've got coming up. Speaking of what's coming up, next up is Formula V for the very first time here in the Ray Esports League. But first, we've got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfala.
And Ray Alfala is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
classes this year. It's going to be at Mid-Ohio, again, in the middle of October. So you definitely want to join us. It's going to be every Tuesday night starting at 9 p.m., except that runoffs date. I think that might start a little bit earlier so we can fit in all 3 races. But Brian, we should have, and I'm using that Spec Racer Ford race as the marker, we should have so much action for the next 3 months.
I tell you what, I'm looking forward to it, Craig. You know, again, first coming in here for the first season for me, I'm really looking forward to watching all 3 of these classes on every single one of these tracks. They're all different. They all have their own characteristics. It's going to be an interesting season. I cannot wait.
Yeah, so track right now, as we mentioned, are the Formula Vs. They were just added to the iRacing platform just a couple months ago, but these cars have been in use around the world, not just in the United States, but around the world since the late 60s, early 70s. They are based on the 1.3 liter motors right out of Volkswagen Beetle. And they make, I believe, somewhere along the lines of about 68 to 72 horsepower. And the spec that we have here, all these cars, they've got drum brakes, although now you can actually, at least in the United States, you can actually spec them with disc brakes. But they are definitely a momentum car. And you'll notice, of course, try to make them as aerodynamic as possible. They depend very heavily on the draft. But as we see there is the number 13 as Zach Burke goes around. Not a lot of rubber underneath them. And so, it really is a juggling act, being able to keep up your momentum through corners, brake as little as possible, carry as much speed through the corners here with these cars. And Brian, it's real interesting here. I mean, these cars are such a throwback. Again, they've got, for the most part here in this spec, drum brakes, and so you really want to brake just as little as possible and barely just brush the brakes going in the corners, not get hard on the brakes because you might lose momentum. But the other part of this is they've got a 4-speed stick shift transmission, and typically the first 2 gears, they're only used to get you off the pit lane. So it's essentially a 2-speed transmission to get around this track, and not very high revving. Again, these are air-cooled Volkswagen Beetle motors, straight out of the 60s. So it really makes for some neat, interesting racing.
Yeah, Greg, you said it best. If you happen to get on the brakes just a little bit too hard, that nose is going to come down. You're going to lose all of your forward bite off of any of these corners. And you're exactly right. The first 2 gears, not used very much. Again, only to maybe get off pit road and maybe get a good start on either a restart or B, even the start of the race. Other than that, you're 3rd and 4th gear. You're not coming out of it. It's all about the momentum, just as we saw with our Spec Racer Fords. I guarantee you what, you need more momentum in here. This is a car with 75 to 80 horsepower. Riding on bicycle tires is what it feels like in one of those cars. If you've never been in one of those, it is the most bumpiest thing. But again, it's all about momentum and trying to keep up with another individual in front of you and keeping somebody behind you.
Yeah, I mean, to say that these cars are throwbacks, I mean, we've talked about the drivetrain being a throwback. We talked about the brakes. But you'll notice here, as you look at these cars now, coming into the outer loop and coming out of the outer loop with the front suspension there, those are straight out of a Volkswagen Beetle. They are torsion bar front suspensions. Not a lot of give. The rear axle is actually a solid rear. And so, again, not a lot of give in these suspensions here. As we've got a couple of drivers now. Looks like Giancarlo Schooler and Jamison Huffman lining up to maybe try and set some fast laps here together. But there are also, a couple things at play here. Compared to the Spec Racer Fords that we saw just a few moments ago. Again, the draft is brutally important in Formula V. But what you will see is, as opposed to the Spec Racer Ford race, where we had maybe one area where we saw passing, and we saw in most cases when there was an attempted pass that the lead car might get a little defensive and try to hold off the car behind. in Formula V, things work a little bit differently. And we'll have to see with a lot of these racers that don't have real-life Formula V racing experience, whether or not they kind of adapt to what happens in real life. Whereas the drivers will essentially, until you pretty much get to the very last lap, will allow a lot of those passes to happen uncontested. And the reason you do that is so that you can keep your momentum up and not scrub off speed. And so if you just let the car ahead of you, maybe going into the bus stop, you let them draft by you, you get back in line, you follow them through, you can continue on and hopefully separate yourselves out from the cars behind, as opposed to, you know, better to have a 2-car pack or a 3-car pack rather than a 10-car pack. But, you know, we may see as a lot of these drivers, some of them haven't been on a real-life racetrack in a real-life race car. And, you know, the one thing that is kind of neat about the iRacing platform, Brian, is, you know, you could jump between, like we see tonight, you know, jump between 2, 3, 4 different race cars, you know, in the course of a day. You know, you don't necessarily learn all of the specifics of each and every platform, what makes you fast. You learn how to get the car and how to hustle a car around and set fast lap times all by yourself, but maybe you don't learn that team game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, a lot of these racers that are in here right now, we saw them earlier on jumping now to another car. They've got probably tons of experience, but, you know, you talk about with the Formula Vs, we talked about this earlier on in the other race. Now we're going to talk about it again. You've got so much different undulation and undulation, I'll say that again, undulation through this racetrack where it's up and down the hills, that if the momentum drops ever so slightly, and you talked about it a couple seconds ago as well, uncontested passes. Guys will drop back to that 5th, 6th, 7th spot because they know at some point they're going to get back up front with the help of the draft from another driver. There's a lot of talking going on between some of these drivers, you know, in order to make sure that stays competitive all the way through this next 20 minutes.
There you go. And there's a good example of it right there where we have the Andrew Bennett with the driver right ahead of him and right behind, and they all seem to, you know, kind of work together like a little ballet to make things work going through the bus stop there. Now, of course, it's qualifying where all these drivers, the goal right now is to set a fast lap, as we're just about 11 minutes into this 15-minute qualifying session, but we'll have to see if that plays out during the race as well, and it probably should. So let's take a quick look at the leaderboard right now, and we see some of the same names that we saw in the Spec Racer Fords up towards the top. Caleb Patry looking for a little redemption after his problematic first race this evening. He's in the number 98 machine right now. He is your fastest driver on track with a 220.16, or to be more accurate, a 220.157. Mark Guillen in the 999 machine. And he's the third car in that group right there. He is currently your second fastest driver on track at a 220.25, and we'll have to see if he can improve on that. Again, he's in the draft right now of 2 other cars. Let's follow Mark and see if he can better Caleb Patry's time here, as we now have just about 3 minutes left to go in qualifying here. He might have gotten held up just a little bit coming out of turn 11 here. Let's see, does he get any better? That last time by, Guillen does not improve. He turns a 220.95. Richard Spicer in the number 10 machine, currently your third fastest, and Murphy Nichols, who's also looking for, I think, a little redemption after he had some we'll call it excitement during the first race. And as we're watching right now, it looks like a lot of our drivers are having some excitement as they're all trying to get that last little bit of speed out of these Formula V machines. And when I say speed, it's all relative, because these cars, they top out at just about somewhere just north of 100 miles an hour here, I think, coming down into the bus stop. And there we go. Actually, Zach Burke. There we go. Dennis Branch. He's got the controls. There is Zach Burke hitting 93 miles an hour going into the bus stop. And you can see here as they try to keep up as much speed as possible. So, you know, not even breaking the 100 mile per hour spot there, pretty much on the fastest part of the track. So we go here, and you can see he's actually a little bit faster coming down into the boot before he has to get on the brakes as we sit on board with Zach Burke. And yet, Dennis, why don't we stick with Zach a little bit and give these guys a view and a feel for what it's like here. Well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Sorry about the announcer's curse there, Zach. I was hoping to show our viewers some of the elevation change here at Watkins Glen and some of the cambering of the corners, but with a minute and a half or so left, maybe we should find somebody else.
Oh, looks like we had a couple get together there. It looks like they were trying to jump up into the, that's the 40 there. That's Morgan Burkhardt. So it looks like him and maybe that may have been Jamison Huffman.
I think that was his teammate Jamison Huffman, going around.
Trying to stay with the front three there to try to collect that draft to pull them up, from that 6th and 7th starting spot right now with about a minute left to go. So.
All right, and we're on board right now with Brennan Horn in the number 45 machine. I'm hesitant to ask our producer to get to get that seat behind the wheel here, but Brennan, as we remember, there we go, did not qualify for our Spec Racer Ford race and sat that one out. So we'll see how he does here this evening. He's currently 11th on the board. As we have just about 30 seconds left to go on the clock, he should have time now to set one more flying lap if he chooses as he crosses the stripe. Does Brennan Horn improve? No, he does not. He turns in a 2:23.41, so almost 2 seconds off of his previous best here, as he's going to go and use and try to set a fast lap here on the very last lap, as we're now just about ready for time to expire here. Only about 5 seconds remaining, so these drivers here now on their last flying laps are on board right now with Wayne Buttermore. Of course, we didn't see that battle develop with Joaquin Effinger earlier, as I think Effinger had hurt his car, and I don't think Effinger is out for this particular race. But we're on board right now with we were on board with Buttermore trying to move up from 18th overall as we move over now to Edgar Sanchinelli in the number 257 machine. He is currently sitting 21st. Let's see if he can improve as he comes through turn 10 into the final corner here, turn 11. And as he comes down the front straight and crosses the line, does Edgar Sanchinelli improve? Yes, he does. He makes up a couple positions, gets around Buttermore, and Sanchinelli will start 18th. All right, so we have a couple more drivers, I think, on their last flying laps here. But as it stands, it looks like Patry and Guillen, as they've been for almost the entire session, should make up your front row. And there we are with Caleb Patry. I believe this is his last flying lap. He's coming up on a lot of slower traffic. I think that's probably helped him out a little bit to get into the draft. We'll have to see if he can maintain that gap and still carry some speed. Again, he is currently your provisional pole sitter with a fast time of a 2:20.16. And as he comes down onto the front straight, and with these cars, it seems like a long time before they get to the stripe. There we go, and Patry does not improve. He turns in a 2:22.02.
But I tell you what, Greg, the driver that jumped up was Jamison Huffman, who jumped all the way up to 3rd, and that's going to move Richard Spicer back down to 4th. So on that last lap, Jamison Huffman able to catch that draft with that group and able to put him up into that 3rd starting spot.
Yeah, and so, would have been interesting to see, because Morgan Burkhard, his teammate, had gone around and spun the car as they tried to hook up with that group going into the S's over by turn 3. Burkhard, his teammate's going to start 7th, a little bit further back. Again, Burkhard was our pole sitter for race 1 for the Spec Racer Fords. All right, so we should have our drivers getting ready to grid up here in just a moment. And as they do, just want to let you know about our sponsor for this race, and they've been with us since season 1, and it is RaceVoice. RaceVoice offers a real-time synthesized alert system for the real race car designed to improve and minimize critical mechanical failures. It gives you information about shift points, about over revs, about critical engine alerts, things like minimum speed entry speed, and exit speed. So it's not just to make sure that you don't blow up your car, but it's also how to get faster as well. Lots of great information. It goes and interfaces with both AIM and Motec data acquisition systems in the real race car, and they also offer something very similar for the virtual race car in iRacing as well. You can find out more about RaceVoice by going to www.racevoice.com. All right, so I think we're just about ready to get things started here to line these cars up on the front straight, and once we do, I'll run down the starting grid for you. But Brian, this should be another barn burner. Let's see here. I think we've got the starting grid coming up now, so let's run it down. Starting on the pole, in the number 98 machine, it's going to be Caleb Patry with Mark Guillen starting right beside him on the outside of row number 1. Making up row number 2, we've got Jamison Huffman in the number 89 machine with Richard Spicer driving that number 10 car. He will start 4th. Murphy Nichols driving the number 5 SBS Racing machine. He'll be on the inside of row number 3 with Zach Burke right beside him. Morgan Burkhard will start on the inside of row number 4 with Mike Taylor starting in 8th. Greg Mack will start 9th. Justin Huffman in the 223 machine. He will round out the top 10. Starting in 11th, driving the number 09 machine will be Jordy Fike from Team eSport Racer with his teammate Brennan Horn starting 12th in the number 45 machine. Starting 13th today in the number 11 car, Stevie Ray from Ray Esports Racing. John Carlos Schooler in the number 111 machine will start on the outside of row number 7. Charles Vaccaro will start on the inside of row number 8 in the 221 machine with Andrew Benna in the far from NASCAR number 71 car. At least it's not the Spec Racer Greg. He's going to start 16th. On the inside of row number 8, we've got Ben or Beans Forster in the number 231 machine with Edgar Sanchinelli in the Frito Sport Racing entry starting in 18th. Wayne Buttermore in the number 73 machine. He will start right beside Aaron Cohen driving the number 3 car starting in 20th position. Wiley Cox driving the number 4 car will start 21st with Derek Marcos in the number 66 car starting right beside him starting 22nd. And then we've got Joaquin Effinger in the number 700 machine with John Casey in the number 78. They're going to make up 23rd and 24th positions, and pulling up the rear of the field in the number 311 car, it's Bryce Evans. So there is your starting grid for our second race of the evening here, our Formula Vs, and this pace lap, Brian, we know that the top speed coming out of the S's is about 93 miles an hour. Hasten to say, I think our Formula Vs are going to be going race pace more or less here on the pace lap.
They've actually already started their race on the on the pace lap just to keep up with the actual pace car.
That's right. You know, we have to be careful with what we say. There's a certain announcer I know that no longer calls the SCCA runoffs because he talked about the speed of Formula Vs back in 2017. But thankfully, I don't think we have to worry about that here on Apex Racing TV as the pace car now brings the field down the back straight here over towards the inner loop, the bus stop at Watkins Glen. And yeah, this pace lap's going to take a while. We've got the drivers already lining up. You can see a lot of them. They are doing a little bit of weaving side by side, try to get some heat into those narrow tires. I'll tell you, it might be a little bit faster. I believe most of the Formula Vs, they normally use steel wheels to pretty much just drag the brake a little bit and try to get some heat to radiate that way. You know, I've talked to a couple real-life spec race, Formula V drivers about the braking. We were talking about the drum brakes. You know, and the thing about whereas a lot of the cars around the world now, and even here in the U.S., have started. Some drivers have started to implement disc brakes. It's primarily more for maintenance reasons and parts availability reasons. The majority of the Formula V racers, they kind of like the drum brakes, and one of the major reasons is it's possible to basically dial out the drag. Because the key with these cars, and we've talked about this, Brian, is keeping up the momentum. And the less drag that you have from the brakes and the less you have to use them, the better. As we know with disc brakes, there's always that little bit of pressure that the brake pads have on the disc rotor. And even that tiny little bit is enough to slow these cars down.
Yeah, to slow them down even from what they're going now would be, astronomical for these drivers. I mean, especially when you're coming up and down some of these hills, by that brake dragging like that, it's really going to slow you down as they're starting to come out and get ready to start take this checkered flag. I guarantee you, Greg, tensions are high early on in this race to get this thing started.
Yeah, and we saw as our first race of the evening started and how hectic things were for the first 2 laps or so. Well, I'm sure we're going to see that again as the pace car now is bringing our pole sitter, Caleb Patry, with Mark Guillen on the outside of row 1 in that green number 999 car onto the front straight. The pace car drops into the pit lane, and as they come down the front straight, get under speed, the green flag is in the air, and Caleb Patry jumps to an early start over the 999 of Guillen. Then we've got Jamison Huffman in the 89 machine sitting right onto the inside, trying to get underneath Guillen, and he does. Murphy Nichols in the number 5 car, I think, gets by Guillen as well, and you can see that green 99 car getting swallowed up as he drops a couple more positions. Morgan Burkhardt, Zach Burke get around Guillen as well, so drop Guillen now back into 6th position. As we look now, another driver who got caught out. It looks like Richards fell back a number of positions as well. But again, as we said, Brian, there is the opportunity, I think, as long as you can stay in the lead pack, to draft up. But we are now already 3 wide going down in 4 wide going into the inner loop with Jamison Huffman in the 89 car. Your leader, Caleb Patry, drops into 2nd place in the number 98. Murphy Nichols now in 3rd, trying to sneak underneath Patry now gets back around Huffman, and then we've got, as we mentioned, Burkhard now, Nichols, as they are going side by side, going down into the chute. Mark Guillen, our outside pole sitter, sitting back in 6th.
I tell you what, Greg, we talked about how tight this racetrack was early on. I tell you what, these Formula Vs, they don't make it look tight. They can go 3, 4, even sometimes 5 wide. We saw it coming out of turn 1. Richard Spicer getting the loser of that turn as he's dropped all the way back to 7th place. Now Jamison Huffman, Caleb Patry, they are starting to look like they want to try to pull away, but here comes Zach Burke in that yellow 13 as he starts to move up. These guys have got to get single file, and now it looks like Patry wants to make a move on Jamison Huffman as they come down into that looks like that is going to be out of turn 9 and up the hill.
That's turn 8 coming out through
turn
the heel
8,
of the boot.
Yep, coming out and up into turn 9.
Yeah, and so we saw Huffman ran very wide at turn 8. Let's take a look here. Oh, we had a couple cars go off. Looks like the 73 of Forster, the 73 of Buttermore, the 231 of Ben Forster went off as well, and I think Joaquin Effinger might have been in there as well. Derek Marcos, I think, was in that little incident as well. He's currently sitting in the pits as we go back to our leaders. Caleb Patry in the number 98 machine. Zach Burke, who's made his way up to 2nd, and he's now battling Patry for the lead as they cross the stripe to complete lap number 1, and it is 2 by 2 under braking going down into turn 1. Patry pushing wide, and you can see there where Zach Burke takes a very tight line, and looks like Patry, by running wide there, he's not going to have to take a slowdown penalty, but he is going to have, I believe, a 1X there coming off as we look back through the field to these small little cars coming up through the S's. 3 wide, Brian.
Yeah, 3 wide through the S's in this type of machine, you can actually do that. It doesn't benefit you too much because you've got to get back on line as they start to come up through turn 4 and start to get through to the bus stop there. Again, 3 wide, 1 person in the back there is that Zach Burke. He's trying to figure out where he wants to go. Now Richard Spicer is going to jump on the backside there of Jamison Huffman as they start to come through there through the chicane. That's actually going to let Zach Burke jump right back in there. Patry, Morgan, Burkhard, they're starting to get nose to tail. They're going to start to look like they want to pull away and get away from the rest of this pack.
Yeah, absolutely. And Morgan Burkhard, who's made up 5 positions since the start of this race, and we're only on lap number 2. He had a great move coming out of the S's, stuck all the way to the inside, and got right up to the back of Caleb Patry coming through the inner loop. He is now your 2nd place runner. His teammate Jamison Huffman sitting back in 3rd with Zach Burke, Richard Spicer, Murphy Nichols, who did lose a position on the opening lap. He is now sitting back in 6th position, but this is still a great battle here as we jump back into the battle for 7th with Greg Mack, Jordy Fike, Stevie Ray, Mark Guillen, who was our pole sitter, sitting all the way back in 10th place. Oh, and we have somebody going off, it looked like, or maybe just ran a little bit wide. I don't believe that was Stevie Ray. We'll try and get the number on that car there.
That may have been the Richard Spicer, because he's dropped all the way back now to 7th, and he was all the way up into that top 4 spot.
Yeah, actually, I think that is. Yeah, that's the number 7 of Richard Spicer, who went a little bit wide through the heel of the boot. And we've seen that from a couple drivers as they get under pressure, and maybe they get the braking a little bit wrong. The heel of the boot, very heavily cambered. You can drop the car right down into a groove and roll right on out. But if you miss that, the car just pushes wide right towards the gravel trap. All right, so we're back up to the front of the field. Actually, we're going to look a little bit further back there as leading the pack now is Caleb Patry in the number 98 machine. Oh, and a big spin. Tires in the air as it looks like, I think, who was involved with that? I think Brennan Horn might have been involved. I think Stevie Ray was involved. Let's see if we can get a replay of that here, Dennis, and we'll see exactly what happened as we had a number of drivers go off again. I think Justin Huffman might have been involved here. Let's take a look at the replay, Brian. As they come down the front straight, popping underneath, it looked like that might have been Guillen to the inside. We had a car go off. We had a number of cars go off. You could see the tires go flying, and looks like a lot of drivers there with issues. And I think by looking at the drivers in the pits, we can kind of get a good idea. Mark Guillen, Mike Taylor, Jordy Fike in the 09 machine, Brennan Horn, Derek Marcos as well. So a lot of drivers caught up in that as we go back to this battle for the lead. And Caleb Patry still managing to hold off. Looks like Morgan Burkhard and Jamison Huffman, but Zach Burke in that yellow number 13 machine, he has now worked his way back up into second as you see the oil smoke from these air-cooled Volkswagen motors on the overrun going under braking here as the drivers come up. And now as we're on board with Morgan Burkhard, and you'll be able to see here as he makes up ground in the draft how quickly you make up ground here as they go under braking into turn 8. And Brian, if you notice that as soon as Zach Burke, who's now taken the lead from Caleb Patry, as soon as he poked to the inside and you had 2 cars wide, it's almost as if Morgan Burkhard was shot out of a cannon, because that big hole in the air got twice as big.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's like that big parachute coming out from those first 2 cars when they get side by side. This is a class, and this is a machine that you don't want to get side by side with. We talked about it early on where you said some of these passes will be uncontested. Looks like every single pass is being contested right now early on. So they're not sticking to our plan. They're going to their own plan. As now it looks like we're going to have side by side again between Zach Burke and Caleb Patry. As now Patry looks like he's going to move the driver's left to try to get that preferred line going down the hill into turn 1. He's going to take it just a little bit wide over the rumble strips there. Zach Burke stays right there on the rumble strips, and Patry's able to get back out in front and take that lead.
Yeah, and he comes over to the apex over at turn 3 to make the way up the S's here. And for a moment there, it looked like Morgan Burkhard was going to try and follow him through. Does not do that, though. But you can see now Burkhard and Richard Spicer in the 18 car, they have picked their horse. They are getting right back behind the number 13. At least they were for a second here as they go now 3 wide. Murphy Nichols in the white number 5 car now. He moves all the way to the front of the field. He is your new leader. Richard Spicer follows him through. Oh, and Jamison Huffman now. He slides off to the outside of the bus stop.
Now we have another one there.
Oh, and Morgan Burkhard looks like he gets spun around by a driver coming out of the bus stop as well. So, and Burkhard now completely off the pace, and he falls towards the back of the field. He's now sitting back in 9th. But his teammate Murphy Nichols, he is your new leader. Richard Spicer running 2nd, Caleb Patry, and Zach Burke. Let's take a look at a replay as they all came through the bus stop seemingly 3 wide.
Yeah, it looks like Richard Spicer went through the middle of both of them, and basically you had Huffman and Morgan Burkhard nowhere to really go. They had to stay outside, and then when they finally got back together coming through that bus stop, there was nothing there but contact left.
Yeah, that's right. So as we now take a look, another one of those All Sports Racer drivers, it's John Carlos Schooler in the 111 car. He is there with Beans Forster. This is the battle for 13th as they are side by side now as they make the run down towards the heel of the boot. And that is part of the track. Very, very bumpy. I imagine with these cars and how stiff the suspension is, it is probably not a fun run on that straightaway there. Matter of fact, the very first time I ran at Watkins Glen, which was back in, I think, 2004, 2005, I actually had to push myself against the race seat in order to keep my foot on the gas pedal. It was so bumpy back there. All right, so we've got Richard Spicer now. He is your leader, again, a former national champion in real life in Spec Racer Ford. He is your leader right now, just for the moment, as Zach Burke as well as Caleb Patry have something to say about it as they come through turn 1 here as we just are about ready to hit halfway in this 20-minute sprint race. And Brian, got to take a quick breath because this race is almost as wild, probably more wild than what we saw a little bit earlier tonight in the Spec Racer Ford.
Well, I tell you what, Greg, as we get to that halfway point, these cars, if you watch these cars, these tires, they're starting to go away quick. Guys are starting to make moves that they probably didn't think they were going to make early on. But now as we get 3 wide coming up into the bus stop right now, again, with Murphy Nichols, Zach Burke, and Richard Spicer. Spicer has to back out of it just a little bit, but Murphy Nichols has the exact line that he needs to get to that apex. Now he's going to get through the outer loop. He starts to pull away by about a car length and a half over Zach Burke and Richard Spicer. But these tires are starting to go away, and these cars are really starting to get loose through this 3.4 mile 11 turn track.
Yeah, and so I think that is the downside to pushing as hard as they are in all of this side-by-side racing in 3 and sometimes 4 wide racing. As we've got Murphy Nichols and now Caleb Patry trying to make a move coming into the toe of the boot. He's got the inside line on Zach Burke, as does Richard Spicer. And Spicer now, he is set up to the inside. He might be able to outbrake Caleb Patry going in there towards the heel of the boot, and let's see if he can do it. No, looks like both Patry and Burke, who are nose to tail, are able to draft right on by Richard Spicer as they come through the heel. All 3 of those drivers now right back behind Murphy Nichols, and look at this, Nichols getting very defensive going into turn number 9, sticking to the inside. Now, again, we just saw Murphy Nichols where he kind of blinked out there for a moment. Frederick, Maryland, maybe not known for the best internet service there. We've seen that a lot from Murphy, but he kind of got caught out as they came out of turn 9 into 10, now into 11. He's going to drop back into 3rd, and we'll see if he can keep that up. But Spicer now moving in, but if you also notice now, this is now a 5-car battle, not a 4-car battle at the front of the field, as Greg Mack has now managed to work his way in a little bit further back. Jamison Huffman trying to get himself back up to that front pack. He is there with Andrew Benna.
I tell you what, Andrew Bennett and Jamison Huffman, if they can stay nose to tail, this will end up being a 7-car battle here, probably within the next couple of laps, because it looks like Zach Burke, Murphy Nichols, and now Richard Spicer moving up that 3rd spot. Again, uncontested passes, they're contesting all those passes. They want to get out in front here, but here comes Greg Mack. Greg Mack is on the driver's left of this, looks like 4 wide, Greg, coming down here, almost 5 wide coming down into the bus stop. Something's going to have to give here.
Yeah, definitely. We've got Nichols and Spicer to the inside, and Spicer pushes very wide coming through the first half of the bus stop. Now moving up in the second, we've got Caleb Patry. Zach Burke moves up as well. But we talked about it. Greg Mack, who came seemingly out of nowhere during the last lap, he now gets around Richard Spicer, so move Mack up into 4th position. He's made up 5 positions since the start of this race. Richard Spicer dropped him back into 5th. As we drop a little bit further back in the pack now, we've got Stevie Ray, who was in an earlier incident. We've got Morgan Burkhard, who was in an earlier incident. And then we've got the Frito Sport entry of Edgar Sanchinelli in that yellow and white number 257 machine. And that is the battle for 8th, just behind Andrew Benna and Jamison Huffman, actually quite a bit back from those 2 drivers as they are contesting. But, great to watch here as we have all these battles seemingly from the front to the back of the pack in this 25 car field.
I tell you what, Greg, with just over 6.5 minutes left to go, again, these front 5, as they're starting to come back through out of turn 9 and up through turn 10, they come up that hill. It's anybody's guess right there, but as we talked about, Andrew Bennett and Jamison Huffman, they are starting to reel them in as they've gained probably 3/10 on the last couple of turns as these guys start to battle with Caleb Patry, Zach Burke, Murphy Nichols, and Greg Mack. Now moved Richard Spicer all the way back to 5th. I think Richard Spicer is just kind of sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen, trying to stay on line to see whether or not these guys are going to make a mistake.
All right, now poking to the inside, it is Zach Burke in the yellow number 13 machine, and he's got Caleb Patry right behind, so Burke will take over the lead. Murphy Nichols running very, very wide, but manages to hold on to 3rd with Greg Mack and Richard Spicer right behind, but looks like Nichols might have held the rest of the pack up just a little bit. They're a little bit further back from our 2 leaders, but with the draft here, I think they are going to start to close up. Now, you mentioned Huffman and Benna, that last lap, they were almost a full second faster than our top 5 drivers. And you can see there in the background, although they're side by side coming out of the S's, much like our leaders, they are definitely making up ground as Murphy Nichols once again, and we've seen this lap after lap, Brian, Nichols seems to have a much better run up through the S's and seems to jump to the lead going into the bus stop almost every single lap.
Yeah, he's getting out of turn 2 and turn 3 really quickly and able to get up that hill up through turn 4 into the bus stop. But it's got to play a little bit of mind games. I've noticed the last lap and a half, Murphy Nichols starts to blink in and out every so often. So you got to know whether or not these guys are paying attention to that, because as he goes away and then comes back, you may not know where he is. But again, as they start to come out of, looks like turn 11, maybe, I think that is, or up the hill, they're starting to go to, again, up. And we've got a couple of cars.
Yeah, that's Richard Spicer and Greg Mack, I believe, going through the. Actually, no, I believe that might have been the 98 of Patry. That was coming through the toe of the boot over by turn number 7. So that has changed things considerably here at the front of the pack. What was a 5-car battle, now a 3-car battle. Let's take a look at the replay, Brian.
Yeah, looks like they get in there a little hot.
Yeah, and as they come up through the toe of the boot there, looks like Spicer just a little bit too close to the back of Caleb Patry, taps the gearbox, and they both go around. And of course, they're on a straightaway, not a lot of runoff area on the straights, and they both get to the Armco. So big changes there as Zach Burke and now Greg Mack moving up into 1st and 2nd as we go back a little bit further. And this now is the battle for 6th. Stevie Ray in the number 11 machine with Morgan Burkhard, who was originally up in that front pack, as well as Edgar Sanchinelli. Burkhard now trying to come underneath Stevie Ray as they go down into turn number 1 with Sanchinelli right behind. Oh, and just ahead of them, we have a car that looks like he spun out. I believe that was actually that was Greg Mack, who was sitting in second place. So that's going to drop Greg Mack now all the way down, almost out of the top 10, and that's going to move Murphy Nichols up into 2nd place. Jamison Huffman now sitting up in 3rd. Let's see if we can take a look at again at that. As they came through turn 1, it looked like Greg Mack had some issues.
I think he may have spun just a little bit earlier on by himself, kind of coming through there, but that's going to allow Huffman and Bennett to close the gap even further. I mean, those two are still sticking together there, so that's going to leave Zach Burke. Let's take a look at it here real quick, see if we can gather what happened with Greg Mack. Yeah,
it looked like Zach Burke had opened up a pretty good gap back to Greg Mack, and Greg Mack just got
overdrove
in
it. Yep, yeah. Just overdrove that turn and then had to get on the brakes, and that just caused that back end on these cars to just come around. So.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that will happen with these cars if you get off the throttle. And now look at this. That's Andrew Bennett in the number 71 machine. He has gone around as well, and that is at the chute, the entrance to the boot. He hit the wall. He is now on pit lane. His day is now done. So that really changes things up here. We've got Zach Burke, who has now got a 5-second advantage over Jamison Huffman. who is currently sitting back in second. And now this battle that we've been watching between Burkhard, Ray, and Sanchinelli, as we have just now about a minute and 15 seconds remaining, basically one more lap remaining here. This is now the battle for the last step on the podium, with Morgan Burkhard currently holding on to that third position in the number 40 machine. He's got Stevie Ray and he's got Edgar Sanchinelli right behind, sitting in fifth position, and sitting just ahead of them. You can see Jamison Huffman just a little bit in the distance all by himself. Heck, you can barely even see our leader, Zach Burke, going down into turn one. As you can see, the white flag is in the air, Brian, but here we go, the battle for third.
Yeah, between Huffman and Burkhardt and Stevie Ray, I'm telling you what, if they start to go through turn one a little bit wide, it looks like that is going to be Huffman that's going to go just a little bit wide, but he's able to tuck back in there. But that's going to allow, I think that's going to be allowing Burkhardt maybe to pull away just a little bit there in that last podium spot for third. But then Stevie Ray, they're not going to go away. I think that's going to come down to the very end here, Greg. But that's allowing Burke to pull away to even further.
Well, now, yeah, and you can see here now as they come up through the S's, as Stevie Ray drafts right past Morgan Burkhard. Edgar Sanchinelli does as well. So we got Sanchinelli to driver's right. We've got Ray to driver's left as they come into the bus stop. And Morgan Burkhard, he's got to try and pick a lane. It looked like for a moment he was going to try and pick the middle, and it closed up on him. He's now going to try and sneak underneath. But, you know, we were talking about how Burkhard had that little bobble coming through turn one. Or pardon me, Stevie Ray had that bobble coming through turn one, but he got, because of the draft, was able to come right back up on Morgan Burkhard. And you can see how quickly the draft works here with these Formula Vs. As we jump back a little bit further, as we've got Giancarlo Schooler in the 111 car, right back behind Beans Forster in the 231, and they are now side by side. This is the battle for eighth, as we've got Wiley Cox in the number 4 machine right behind them. And so great battles all around. Let's jump back up to the front of the field if we can, Dennis, here, as we've got our leader. That is Zach Burke. He is coming out of turn 8, out of the heel of the boot. He's only got about 3 more turns. We could see Jamison Huffman off in the distance there. And look at this, Stevie Ray. He is off in the grass. And so now it is Morgan Burkhard and Edgar Sanchinelli in that battle for third. We'll get back to that in just a minute, as our leader, Zach Burke, makes up 5 positions to take the win here in round 1 of the Formula Vs at the Ray Esports Racing League. And so Zach Burke, he crosses the stripe, he takes the win. Jamison Huffman coming out of the final corner out of turn 11. He is going to finish in second. And now Sanchinelli and Burkhard battling it out for the third step, the final step on the podium. And by a margin, look at this, Brian, 1/1000th of a second, Morgan Burkhard takes home third. Sanchinelli will finish fourth. Jamison Huffman works his way back up to fifth. Greg Mack will finish in sixth. Beans Forster holds off Giancarlo Schooler also by 1/1000th of a second. Forster finishing in seventh. Schooler finishing in eighth. Wiley Cox brings his car home in ninth. And there's Wayne Buttermore, driver of the number 73 machine. He will round out the top 10. Finishing 10th, Wayne Buttermore. All right, Brian, another barn burner there. Now, again, it got kind of easy for Zach Burke. He just had to manage things at the very last lap, but I'll tell you, that was some great racing. And, you know, we talked about it during the pace lap. Are these drivers going to race like a Formula V racer does? And the answer, no.
No, they are not. It seems as the race went on, the more mistakes seemed to happen, and that just helped Zach Burke, is that he just wanted to hold the steady wheel all the way around and let everybody else make those mistakes.
All right, there we go. Mike Taylor now finally crossing the stripe. Jordy Fike in the 09 machine, he crosses the stripe at 11th. Mike Taylor will finish in 12th. Joaquin Effinger in the number 700 machine, he will finish in 13th, and the rest of the field comes on through. And so let's do this. Brian, we're going to bring him in for the second time this evening. Hopefully, we can get Zach Burke into the green room. But for the moment, we do have our second place finisher tonight in Formula V, and that is Jamison Huffman.
There it is.
Jamison Huffman, congratulations, finishing second. Almost a perfect sweep this in tonight's races. Talk about this race and talk about what you had to do to get back up into that second spot.
It was basically I was talking to Andrew and saying just keep swapping positions and don't hold each other up, because we were slowly but ever so surely gaining to the lead pack. And then when I saw it was about like 8-9 minutes to go, I was thinking there's going to be a crash because these cars are just crazy, and the slightest wheel touch will send a car like 3 feet into the air. And sure enough, that happened.
Well, I tell you what, congratulations on keeping that wheel as straight as possible, getting back up to that second position. Anybody you'd like to thank in this Formula V race?
Probably the same people: mom, dad, my teammates, and you guys for commentating, and Stevie and Greg for setting this up.
Well, there you go. There's your second place finisher in tonight's Formula V, Jamison Huffman. Jamison, congratulations. Greg?
Thanks.
All right, there you go. That was Jamison Huffman, driver of the number 89 machine, comes home with another podium tonight, finishing second in Formula V. As we still try to track down Zach Burke, we do have Morgan Burkhard, who finished third tonight in Formula V. Very tough race. Let's bring him on in.
Morgan, congratulations taking that last podium spot here in this Formula V. I tell you what, you had a spin early on, but you collected your thoughts, collected that car. Talk about how you worked yourself back up into that last podium spot.
Well, I going into the bus stop, I think we were like 3 rows of 3 wide. It was ridiculous but fun. And then I just got a little bit too much curb, and I got into my teammate Jamison. And then after that, I had a little spin. And yeah, it was just head down, keep pushing. You never know what's going to happen. And fortunately for me, but unfortunately for everyone else, there were a few spins. I don't know exactly what happened.
Yeah,
it's just.
I tell you what, how much did your car change? From that, because of that spin, did it change at all? I know that Jamison talked about early on about cars going away, about halfway through the race. How much did that affect your car?
Well, luckily these things are built like tanks, so I didn't really get any damage from it. But yeah, I got a little bit of some flat spots, and it definitely hurt the tires a bit, which is why I didn't have a lot of pace late in the race, which is why I was worried about keeping the podium position, but I did.
All right. Well, congratulations again, finishing third, working yourself back up there after that early spin and after that early incident. Congratulations. And Greg, we'll send it back over to you.
All right, there you go. There we go. We've got Morgan Burkhard, driver of the number 40 Formula V. Second podium for him this evening. Great run from those folks with the Autosport racing team. And looks like we were not able to get a hold of Zach Burke. But what we are going to do, just because we got a little bit of time here, we're going to, nope. And Edgar just disappeared. So we're going to wrap things up. Thank you very much. Hey, look, we just found Zach Burke. All right. So tell you what, let's bring in Zach, driver of the number 13 machine, our winner tonight in Formula V.
Zach, congratulations on winning this opening round of Season 3 in this Formula V. You started out 6th. You worked your way up through the front. Talk about that race and talk about what happened there at the end, because it was just unbelievable how it went from 4 or 5 wide down to just you by yourself, buddy.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was a lot of fun. It was crazy at times, but just tried to keep my nose clean, and if I could sense something was happening, I just back out of it and tried to keep it clean, and obviously it paid off. So.
Well, I tell you what, you ran a pretty good, solid race there. Again, keeping that thing as straight as possible, letting everybody else, unfortunately, make those mistakes. Anybody you'd like to talk about tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. All the eSport guys, GB Consulting, Brennan Horn for photography, and Steve and Greg for putting this whole thing together.
All right. Well, there you go. That's Zach Burke, your winner in the Formula V here at Watkins Glen. Greg?
All right, there we go. And just to make things clear, I don't do everything around here. These guys are all thanking, of course, Steve Ray, the Ray in Ray Esports Racing, as well as Greg Hubler, our 2 administrators for this league. And so I definitely want to thank them as well. Once again, they've brought some of the best virtual racers here to join us this season. And I think after watching these 2 races, Brian, you can definitely agree to that.
Absolutely.
All right. So, real quick before we wrap things up, again, want to thank our two great sponsors. Of course, we've got RaceVoice and new this season, Alliance Autosports. You can check them out at racevoice.com as well as allianceautosport.com, and definitely recommend that you check them out for all of your racing needs. And let's take a quick look once again at that schedule, because, of course, we're going to be back once again 9 p.m. next Tuesday night from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. You don't want to miss it. It is another great venue for not only the Spec Racer Fords, who are going to join us again next week, but as well as the Mazda Mx-5s. We're going to give the Formula Vs a week off. So quick reminder to everybody, if you like what you saw here tonight, go ahead and give us that thumbs up. Make sure to go and subscribe to Apex Racing TV's YouTube channel. And of course, click on that notification bell so you can find out about all the great racing action around the world that Apex Racing TV offers. If you like what you saw here tonight, I guarantee you there's more like it every single day on Apex Racing TV. You can also find out more about our offerings on the different social media channels, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. Just search for Apex Racing TV, all one word, and that is your gateway to great virtual motorsports. So for Brian Donati on the mic, for Dennis Branch behind the scenes in the production truck, I'm Greg Ginsburg. We'll see you next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. from WeatherTech Raceway.